Hi, I'm Natan. In This Week in Life, our National Space Program decided to honor their first African American female engineer. NASA, or the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, made a statement this week that they are going to name their Washington, D.C. headquarters after Mary Jackson, the organization's first African American female engineer. Jackson also contributed greatly to the drive to get the first U.S. astronauts into space. The decision is especially important now that our nation as a whole is having a discussion about deeply institutionalized racism in the U.S. In other news, the Smithsonian Institution, as well as other museums, zoos, and theme parks, have opened their virtual doors while their physical doors remain closed. In the past few months, there has been an increase in virtual tours being offered by many institutions that had to close their facilities due to the coronavirus. These virtual tours are a good way to experience those places while staying safe. Now on to This Week in Life in History. On Wednesday, June 24th, in 1901, Pablo Picasso had his first show in Paris. On Thursday, June 25th, in 1951, CBS had the first broadcast in living color, but many people were not able to appreciate it because they had black and white TVs. On Friday, 26th, in 2000, the first rough map of the human genome was made. And on Saturday, June 27th, in 1880, Helen Keller was born. That's all for now, so let's head over to Alexander for This Week in Tech.
Thanks again. For the sake of redundancy, this is This Week in Tech. This week's tech news only has two things, but they are two major things. Apple is switching to ARM-powered MacBooks, which I'll explain in a minute, and Apple has also announced their latest software updates. First up is a major change to the hardware going into Macs. Apple is switching from Intel-based Macs to ARM-based Macs. No, not ARM as in your arm. ARM as an advanced RISC machine. And RISC is another acronym that stands for Reduced Instruction Set Computing. Don't you hate it when acronyms do that? Anyway, what you care about is that ARM processors are the processors that go into your phones, like the A13 that goes into the iPhone 11, and the Snapdragon 865 that goes into Android phones like the OnePlus 8 Pro. Apple is doing this for easier flow between their hardware that's being put into the MacBooks, and so that they can more easily regulate the stuff that's going into them. So the switch will take a couple of years for all of their products to become ARM-based, but for those people who did buy Intel-based MacBooks, you're not out of luck. They are keeping compatibility for the next few years, so you will still get a good few years out of your MacBook before they just completely cut all compatibility. Of course, there are people who only use x86-based programs, and for those who don't know, x86 is the architecture that is used on Intel and AMD processors. But Apple is working with the companies who made that software to get those programs on ARM-based programs. I hope you know what I'm saying. But this can mean that you can have programs like DaVinci Resolve or Adobe Photoshop maybe running on your phone with apps like Instagram and WhatsApp running on your Mac as an actual app, not just as a browser extension. Which I find is pretty darn cool. Next up, or well, finally I guess, Apple has announced macOS Big Sur, or macOS 11, iOS 14, iPadOS 14, and watchOS 7. There are way too many features for me to fit into this small 4-minute segment, so I'll only be explaining a few of the major ones. iOS 14 is adding widgets. For those of you who have never seen an Android phone, widgets are little blocks of information that you can put on your screen. so that you don't have to actually go into the app to see it. Like, if you want to see the weather, you don't have to go into the weather app. You can just see the little block of information that has weather, that has the weather for today. iOS 14 is also adding an app library, so where you can view all of your apps that you don't have on your home screen, and they'll be sorted into drawers that the phone will determine. Anyway, macOS Big Sur has had a major design overhaul that it's very controversial. Many people like it, many people hate it. But that's not the point. I'm not going to get into all of the design changes, but no. So let's move on. watchOS 7 is adding a sleep tracker and a hand washing tracker. The sleep tracker, well, it's kind of self-explanatory. It tracks your sleep cycles, when you wake up and when you go to sleep. And then watchOS is also adding a hand washing timer. I mentioned that already, didn't I? Anyway, the hand washing timer hears when you start washing your hands, and then starts a 20-second countdown to get rid of all of the Voldemort on your hands. Some of you know what I'm talking about. At least I hope some of you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, that's it for today. Stay safe, stay happy, and as always, stay smart. Over to Noah with This Week in Sports.
Thanks, Alexander. The Belmont Stakes happened. The MLB is back, and Liverpool are crowned champions of England for the first time in 30 years, and much more today on This Week in Sports. The Belmont Stakes happened earlier this week, and its winner is 'Tis the Law. Major League Baseball has returned, but with a shortened season. The format is 60 games instead of the normal 162. Now into soccer, where Liverpool have finally won the Premier League title after 30 years. They won it when Manchester City lost to Chelsea 2-1. They are the earliest Premier League champions ever with 7 games remaining, but they're also the latest by winning it on June 25th. In other soccer news, Thomas Meunier from PSG has signed with Borussia Dortmund. And finally, Arsenal have extended David Luiz's contract. That's all for now in This Week in Sports. Now on to This Week in Media with Hannah.
Thanks, Noah. This week in social media, teens on TikTok are using their platform to undermine President Trump's rallies and campaign. Last week, they reserved seats for his rally in Tulsa, knowing that they would actually not show up to the rally. This week, they are adding Trump 2020 merchandise to their shopping carts to make the inventory numbers drop, while actually not purchasing said items online. Disney announced that Splash Mountain would be rebranded to be based off of Princess and the Frog. This is a big change, as the ride has always been branded off of Song of the South, a racist Disney movie from 1946. Song of the South is a movie that was never released to DVD, VHS, or any other home video format because of its glorified portrayal of slave plantations and its racist and stereotypical view on Black people in America. Finally, the U.S. House of Representatives voted to grant D.C. statehood. Well, that's all for my segment and this episode. Bye, guys! Hey, guys! I hope you enjoyed that video. If you really enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe, comment, like, and share with your friends. Have a good week, and we will all see you next week in life.